Why don't we get into week 13? A lot of these teams, you just don't know who they are week to week. They have a good week. Obviously, Antonio Brown, he can't stay away from the law or getting himself into trouble from the NFL. I've been hearing that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers might actually drop him and let him go. That's a whole nother story and a whole nother character. But last week, this was probably one of the worst game schedules we've seen in a very long time. When you look at the Giants and what the Giants did against the Dolphins, it was very humiliating. And I understand Daniel Jones is not 100% healthy. Their defense has not been the defense it was last year. But what they did against this Dolphins team, and this Dolphins team is not good. Jalen Waddle looks like a player. I mean, they have some pieces that you can be very excited if you're a Dolphin fan. All you New York fans that are Dolphin fans out there, which is quite a few. A couple of my friends are actually Dolphin fans.
My uncle is too.
Probably because of Dan Marino, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dan Marino was the more popular quarterback in those times, especially in the 80s and the 90s. But who would have thought that Brian Flores would be on the hot seat this year? One of the best young coaches in the NFL. This year, it just hasn't worked out for them. They're 6-7. A lot of people thought they were a borderline playoff team. They are kind of in the playoff race right now.
Yeah, they've won 5 in a row, so they're technically back in it, but they still have to leapfrog 3 other teams.
So it's crazy they've won 5 in a row. If you want to say that's good, but a team that should have had 10 wins, a lot of people thought that this team was as talented as any of the teams in the AFC East, especially better than the Jets. I mean, that's not saying much. But the Giants, I thought, going into Miami was going to put a little bit better of a game, a little better plan. And Joe Judge looks like he's like a deer in a headlight. And he doesn't say much to the press. I think the press puts a lot of pressure on him. We've seen it with Tom Thibodeau. And you know that if you're going to take a job here in New York, you're going to have to deal with the press. You're going to have to deal with the emotional fans that they have over here. And listen, the New York fans are not happy with a 4-8 record. They had a 6-10 record at the end of the season last year. They're probably going to be 6-11 this year. I mean, if they win 2 games, I'll be very surprised. How could you sit here and say today that the Giants are put in a very good position for next year with Joe Judge, even if Gettleman's gone?
Yeah, Joe Judge, I think this year doesn't have that same pulse on the game. Now, with the media, that's always been the Bill Belichick mantra, so I guess he gets it from him. None of his coaches are like that.
You can't copy Bill Belichick.
No, but I would say outside of Vrabel, all the Belichick coaching tree, like we mentioned, Flores,
hey, listen,
they're
just
pretty quiet.
I just told you a story before the show started, what Vrabel did.
Yeah, that's what I said. Vrabel's the exception. But beyond that, like, seems like everyone else from his coaching tree really has been like that. But even so, I don't think Judge has had the same pulse on the game in terms of game planning perspective. The discipline of the Giants really haven't been there as much either. And this is a Miami team that, yes, they're hot right now, but they're still not a great overall team. I would say their roster
horrible, man.
I would say their roster is pretty average. I think.
Who's their quarterback? Tua?
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Well, Tua's played fine.
Well, he's going to keep his job because of the 5-game win streak.
I think, though, the Giants still had a chance, though, with their defense against a bad offensive line in Miami, a team that's actually worse offensive line-wise than the Giants are, as weird as that sounds. I'm surprised they couldn't take advantage with Patrick Graham also knowing the Dolphins coming from that coaching staff. You wouldn't think they would play a little better than they did. Obviously, their offense, they knew was going to be limited because of a backup quarterback, because of the Dolphins' defense now playing like they should. So I was expecting the Giants to at least put up more of a fight defensively, but just even so, the discipline isn't there. The game planning really isn't there. It doesn't seem like they have a modern NFL product right now, and that has a lot to do with Judge and also has a lot to do with Gettleman. So he's been good at times in the draft, but it still hasn't
great
really...
at drafting. I thought he's been great in the last 2 years in the draft. I just think his free agency market has been horrible.
Sure.
Kenny Golladay?
But I still think, again, the way the Giants are built right now, they're overloaded in certain positions.
Isn't Saquon Barkley's contract up this year?
Next year.
They're going to have to decide what they're going to do with Saquon. If I were the Giants...
It'll depend on who their next coach is if Judge isn't there.
I say you trade him in the offseason. He can't stay healthy, and they're not one player away. They're not a running back
No, they're
away.
far from one player away. The Giants have a lot of holes right now.
You could get a second-round draft pick for Saquon.
Maybe. Still, I would see who this next coach is if they do end up getting rid of Judge, because I think if Gettleman's gone, Judge will end up being gone too. And if there's a coach out there that's like an offensive, creative guy that maybe thinks they can get better out of Saquon.
Brady, who just got fired by the Carolina Panthers, which made no sense. How do you fire a guy before the bye week?
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Even so, I don't think the Giants as a whole are showing that same kind of peskiness as last year too. Last year they hung tough with good teams. They beat Seattle, who was a playoff team last year. They hung tough with teams like the Rams, the Browns they played close with, who ended up being a playoff team.
Well, look on the bright side. Matt Rule might be available, so he could be going to the Giants next year.
Annoying.
That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's the other thing, because he also has ties with the Giants organization. That's the thing that worries me too, because it seems like the Giants are still kind of stuck in trying to keep their own guys and trying to bring back their own guys. Ever since Coughlin,
biggest mistake they ever did.
That whole controversy.
Let go of Tom Coughlin.
But that whole controversy, that whole thing, they've looked like they're just trying to hang on to their values, and they've looked dysfunctional in doing it. And just recreate a new image. Certain ownership groups seem to be like that, and now you're seeing, even though they're still winning, a team like the Steelers fall apart for similar reasons. I think a lot of these old school ownerships, even the Raiders too, in ways, even though they're playing better this year, they still are stuck in their own ways where they have to get their guys, and it just doesn't work.
Daniel Jones, he was stamping his name to Daniel Jones. If Daniel Jones wasn't going to work out, he was going to be gone. I still think Daniel Jones could be a good quarterback in this league. I just don't think they've put enough pieces. He hasn't put enough pieces around Daniel Jones to be successful. And unfortunately, because of that, Daniel Jones was probably going to be looking for a new job. He'll be back up in this league, and maybe one day he'll get another opportunity to be a starting quarterback. Maybe he becomes another Tannehill or somebody like that, and he goes somewhere else where a team actually gives him an opportunity to be successful, and he could turn out to be a good quarterback. But I just think the Giants did not develop him the way he should have been developed, and I think Gettleman right now is on the hot seat. He's been on the hot seat since last year. They needed to win 7 or 8 games this year. They're just not. And now you look at the Giants. I mean, Saquon Barkley, his first draft pick he's ever had, he can't stay healthy. He can't stay on the field, and that's a big problem when you go after a running back in the top 3 in the draft when you could have gotten, hey, Sam Darnold, who hasn't really looked good, or maybe even Baker Mayfield, who hasn't really looked good. So if you look at the top 3 picks in that draft, all 3 of them have not stayed healthy and have not been good.
Maybe Daniel Jones will go to the Steelers with Dwayne Haskins as his backup.
Honestly, Daniel Jones has been just as good as Sam Darnold, and he's
fair.
been just as good as Saquon Barkley. I mean, Saquon Barkley had one really good year.
Right. I don't think Daniel Jones ever had the peak success of Saquon in the first 2 years.
But they haven't put enough players around him.
I'll defend him this year in the case of because of the receivers being
and the offensive
really
line.
Bad. The offensive line outside of Andrew Thomas being bad. I think he's shown some growth in some areas. Yes, he's still inconsistent, which is going to...
How could you be consistent when you don't have weapons?
Yeah.
Tony, they drafted him. He looked good for a couple of games. He's hurt. He can't stay healthy.
So if they have a new regime that says, all right, we're going to take our own guy, and maybe it's somebody available.
Maybe they decide
to
keep him.
Draft. Yeah. I think they should try to keep him too. This quarterback draft isn't great right now.
If he was in this draft class, he's the best quarterback in this class.
Maybe. It's just not a gamble that the Giants, I think, should be worth taking. Maybe, again, it depends on what other veterans become available too. I'm not saying a big one, a bridge guy for a 2023 quarterback too. So I would hang on to Jones. It just depends on whoever coaching staff.
Demaryius Thomas, sad story that came out during the Sports Loudmouths on Thursday that he passed away, 33-year-old, great wide receiver. We'll get into that in just a few moments because I have a lot to say about Demaryius Thomas. He played for the Jets. I'm a Jet fan. Didn't do much with the Jets, but special player, and a lot of people, Peyton Manning has spoken up. Tim Tebow has said a lot of things about him. A lot of ex-players that played with him have said so many unbelievable things about him and how he was just a great team leader. But the Jets, Zach Wilson came back. Did he look better than he's looked the whole season? Yes. Is that saying much? No. Now, Tyler, on our Sports Loudmouth shows, he said that this is the first game that he didn't look like he was a deer in the headlights. He looked like he knew what he was doing. The numbers would not show that he did. He did run a touchdown, and he did have 2 throwing touchdowns. He threw an interception. You see growing pains with this kid. I do believe this kid's going to be a great quarterback in this league. If the Jets put the right pieces around him, something that Daniel Jones didn't get, I think that the Jets will get this kid working on all cylinders. I think he is going to be a quality quarterback in this league. The problem with Zach Wilson in the last couple of weeks is these short passes have been a huge problem. Doesn't make an accurate short pass throw, which is very weird because in BYU, he made a lot of them. Over the shoulder, he was one of the most accurate quarterbacks in all of college football. And the fact that he's not accurate with these short passes makes absolutely no sense. Maybe it's in his head right now. The Jets' running game has not been as good. Carter has been hurt. Hopefully Carter will be back this week or next week. The thing is, looking at the Jets against the Eagles last week, the Eagles are a borderline playoff team. They're fighting for a playoff spot. The Jets are not a borderline playoff team. They're not any good. Their defense, really skeptical in certain aspects of their game. They can't stop the run. This was one of the best run defenses in all of football before Robert Saleh. This year, Robert Saleh comes in, and they're not. And they have the same players practically. Maybe even better with Rankins and obviously Quentin Williams. So it doesn't make any sense right now where the Jets are when it comes to their run defense. But all in all, I think this is a team that is going to have growing pains this year. I expect next year to be a much better season. I think with the draft stock that they have and $45 million to spend next year, not as much as I thought they were going to have, but that's because they gave Frank Lemire a $50-some-odd million contract this season. Carl Lawson has missed the season. The return of Carl Lawson, maybe you draft a Hutchinson if he falls to them in a draft. Yeah. You add depth to that defensive line that they haven't had over the years. They haven't had a John Abraham type. Maybe it's Hutchinson.
Heisman Heisman candidate.
Yeah,
Aiden
so
Hutchinson.
and we don't know. Some people say it's going to go 1 and 2 for defensive linemen. I don't think
Very
so.
much could.
I don't think it is because I don't think the Texans are going to draft a defensive lineman.
Well, it's Jacksonville right now.
Well, Jacksonville plays the Jets, so more than likely Jacksonville will win. And if the Texans win another game, they could. I mean, they've been in a lot of games. I've been very surprised. Last week they got crushed by the Colts, by the way. But Taylor has been unbelievable. Elijah Moore looks like he's going to be a star in this league. It looks like Elijah Vera-Tucker looks like he's going to be a star in this league. So if you look at what Joe Douglas has done so far in the draft, sensational. As far as this free agency market and the fact that Denzel Mims isn't playing, it doesn't make any sense. He has to make a decision in the offseason what they're doing with Denzel Mims. If they're not going to play him, trade him for a second-round draft pick because I'm sure there'll be teams lining up for a second-round draft pick. I think he's going to be a star in this league. I think he reminds me of a Julio Jones type of player. I don't know if he's Julio Jones, but he's got the length, he's got the speed, he's got the leaping ability. He's everything you want from a wide receiver. The fact that he doesn't fit in the offense makes no sense. All right, so we're going to do our free-for-all picks of our week.
So score update right now, it is still Errol up by 3.
Yes.
At the moment, he got the Chargers last week on the over. I got the Patriots on the under. Let's start this week with a interconference matchup. The 49ers at the Bengals, the over-under 48.5.
Go ahead, Speedy.
I'm going to take the 49ers here. I think this will be a close game. I think this will be a higher scoring game. I'm going to take them on the over. Both these receiving depths would be good against bad secondaries that these teams have. I think the 49ers' offensive creativity, though, has still gotten better, and I think the Bengals are going to have a tougher time with those matchups with linebackers and corners, just the 49ers, the motion, the way they like to do it. I think Burrow and Chase both have big games for the Bengals. The 49ers run defense, though, even though it was bad at the start of the season, has gotten better in recent weeks, so I don't think Joe Mixon has the same week this week. So I'll take San Fran on the over.
They got to fly all the way to Cincinnati. I got the Bengals in this game. Love Joe Burrows, love Jamar Chase, love Boyd. I think Boyd's going to have a breakout game against his San Francisco secondary. Give me the Bengals on the over.
All right, Buffalo Bills at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the over-under 53.5 for this one. I got the Buccaneers in this game. I think this is going to be a tough matchup for Buffalo's defense with the receiving depth, even without Antonio Brown for the Buccaneers, because no Tre'Davious White right now. They really don't have that lockdown number one corner. The other corners are fine, but now you're dealing with Evans and Godwin and Brady, who's torched the Bills in his career. So I think that's going to be a tough matchup for them. I think it'll be close for a while, but then I think Tampa's going to pull away in the fourth quarter. Buffalo, one-dimensional offense right now, doesn't look good. So I'll take the Buccaneers on the under.
I got the Bills in this game. I think the Bills, after what happened in last week against the Patriots and not playing the game that they thought, really because of the wind, and they don't have a running game, and they're going to have to run against the Buccaneers. They're going to have
That'll be hard to do against the number one run defense for the last 3 years.
That's fine, but I think the Bills are going to have a good game. I like the Bills in this game. I like Josh Allen. I don't see them losing 2 games in a row. Give me the Bills on the under.
All right, Monday Night Football. The LA Rams at the Arizona Cardinals. 51.5 is the mark we're looking at for that. I'll take the Rams in this one. I think they're going to get out of this funk at some point. They're too good of a team, so they'll be losing the way they have been losing. I know they blew out the Jaguars last week, big whoop. But Arizona, they've been a pattern ever since they started undefeated, so I think they have a little bit of a letdown after the blowout last week. The NFC West has a lot of road rivalry games that result in road teams winning. I think the Rams bounce back, a little more primetime experience. I'll take them. I'll take them on the under. I think it'll be lower scoring than people think.
I got the Rams, too. I think the Rams need this game more than the Cardinals do. I think they're going to come out very strong in Arizona. The Cardinals, Kyler Murray, I think he'll have a good game. I still think Hopkins is still waiting for that breakout game we haven't really seen this year, so I expect him to be healthy and go out there and play well as well. And the Cardinals' running game has been awesome, too, this year. So both their running backs. I'm going to go with the LA Rams. Give me the Rams, Matthew Stafford, and Odell Beckham having 2 touchdowns in the game on the under.
2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns.
All right.
I think Odell will have a breakout game this week, so he better. I need him on my fantasy team because I need to get into this playoff and shut up the beef. I want the beef to get knocked
Please
out.
shut out the beef.
He doesn't shut up, man. Ever since Derrick Henry, he's telling me he's lost, and then he wins every week. And he says, well, it's not because of that. Shut up, okay? Beef, complaining about everything. Keep complaining that Ezekiel Elliott should be on the same line as Barry Sanders. It's ridiculous. And Ezekiel Elliott's probably not going to have a job next year if they drop him. But that's just my opinion.